The White House is tired of investors buying up all the homes, and they have a big plan to stop it. I'm just kidding. The plan that they have isn't going to really change anything. In this video, we're going to talk about what exactly they're proposing, and I'm going to give you my alternative of what they should be doing. According to the White House, the problem is real estate supply is going down and investor purchases are going up. And what that means is the normal everyday person who wants to buy a home is going to pay more and have less opportunity. And so maybe you don't want to play that game, so you decide to rent. Well, what this is leading to is even higher rental rates as well. And so whether you choose to buy a home or whether you choose to rent a home, you're going to end up paying a lot more than you probably want to. And the White House is proposing a few ways to potentially change this. One of the ways they do this is through tax credits. Now, it's unclear exactly how this is going to work, but historically, they've done it in a number of ways. The first is by incentivizing developers to build low-income housing. So take, for example, me. I'm a real estate investor. I have a fund called Pineda Capital, and we go out and look for good real estate deals all across the country. I could go out and buy an apartment that's already existing and it's a normal deal. But with these tax programs, the government might say, hey, if you buy this piece of land and you develop it, we're going to give you a certain amount of tax credits for doing it. They could potentially give me millions in tax credits that could wipe out all of my income, and I now don't have to pay taxes. And for me as a developer/investor, this could be extremely lucrative. Not only do I save all that money in taxes, but I get to build a brand new building that's going to cash flow, appreciate, and give me even more tax benefits as I own it. So on the development side, what they're doing is fantastic. But another thing they can do is subsidize rent. So let's just say I went ahead and built this building and the market rent was $1,500. But they want to make it easily available for low-income people, and so they say that, hey, you can only charge $1,000 for this unit. Now, for me as the investor, I'm not too happy about that because I'm losing $500 times however many units I have. But what the government can do is subsidize the $500 that's owed to me. And in this scenario, I'd be getting market rent for my units, and the tenant would be getting it at a very cheap price because the government's subsidizing it. And also, this is a brand new building, so it's gonna be in much better condition than anything else they could have rented, and it's probably gonna be in extremely high demand. And this isn't too different from what Section 8 does. There are many people who rent properties from me who are on Section 8. And depending on how much money that they make, the government will subsidize the rest of their rent. And as a landlord, it's great because that money is guaranteed from the government. It doesn't matter what happens with the tenant's job. And I do know there are a lot of landlords who don't want Section 8 because they think they're getting a lower quality tenant. But there are many landlords who prefer it because they know that the check is guaranteed and sometimes even over market value. But here's the funny thing about all this. Biden is proposing something that isn't new. This stuff has been going on forever. And in fact, it's how former President Trump built his empire. Trump made hundreds of millions and probably billions from taking advantage of these different tax credits and subsidies. And if you don't believe me, read his book called Art of the Deal, where he talks about negotiating with the state for these credits. They're also saying they're going to make funding easier for these projects. So if I do want to go develop one of these low-income buildings, I know that I can get the financing to do it much easier than before. And as I'm saying, I think this is great as an investor, but don't you think it's going to widen the wealth gap? The developers who are already well off get more tax breaks to go do this. They become more wealthy. Sure, the poor people get lower rent and a nice place, but they're not in a much better spot financially than before. And somebody's got to end up paying the tax for all these credits and rent subsidies. And to me, it just seems obvious that it's the middle class who will pay it. The middle class just doesn't get the subsidies that the lower class gets, and they don't get the tax breaks that the upper class gets. They end up being stuck with the bill for all of these different things. So my personal belief is I'm happy for the tax credits. You'll probably see me developing one of these at some point, but I think the middle class gets pinched. Another proposal the White House is making is increasing the amount of 2 to 4 unit buildings. You may have heard many real estate investors talking about starting up with a duplex, a triplex, or even a fourplex. And the reason they say this is because you can get an FHA loan for 3.5% down, and you can go live in one of the units and rent out the rest of them to make cash flow. I've known many real estate investors who have started out this way. And the White House says they want more people to do this. And so they're gonna make zoning easier to start building these properties, and they're gonna make financing even easier on them as well. But the truth is, this still probably helps out the investors more than it does the normal homeowner. A lot of people are scared to buy a fourplex because if something happens to the other 3 units, they may not have the money to go fix them. They have no problem handling their 1 unit, but having tenants and managing properties is a whole different ballgame for a lot of people. And multifamily like this by nature is mainly for investors. There's not a lot of owner-occupied people who live in them. And with the proposals they're talking about, it doesn't seem like they're adding any type of rent control to the equation. They're just making zoning easier so developers can build more. But if you haven't heard, building costs are extremely expensive right now. So if you're gonna go build a fourplex, you gotta make sure the numbers add up. And the only way that numbers can add up is if you increase your rents. So once again, I see this tactic benefiting the wealthy more so than anyone else. Another thing Biden's proposing is increasing the supply of manufactured housing. They're gonna make getting financing on them easier. They're also gonna allow single-wide mobile homes to be financed. I'll tell you, I'm excited for that because I've sold many single-wide mobile homes and I've always had to sell them cash because we couldn't get them financed. So that opens up the door for more people to get in homes. And I do think that this one will help the lower class, but it's definitely not helping out the middle class at all. And by definition, the middle class does not buy mobile homes. So this doesn't help them at all with their journey of trying to go buy a normal home to fit their wealth. On top of that, the price of manufactured homes have been skyrocketing. I actually did a YouTube video talking about how we sold a mobile home recently for over $300,000. I would have never imagined that in my life, that somebody would pay that much for a mobile home, but you're starting to see it in certain locations. The next thing they want to do is allow HUD homes to go to nonprofits and owner-occupieds. If you don't know what a HUD home is, you can actually go to HUDhomestore.com. Essentially, they're foreclosures that were FHA insured. And I've bought many of them as an investor and I've made money flipping them. But they already have a similar process in place right now. Typically, the first 10 to 20 days they list a home, it's only available to owner-occupied, to nonprofits, or to government employees. Then after that period, if nobody buys it, it will go to investors. And then if no investors want to buy it, they'll start dropping the price. But here's the truth on what I've observed from HUD homes. They're a very small portion of what's actually available. If you don't believe me, let's check out what's available in Las Vegas right now. All right, I just looked it up. There's literally no homes in all of Clark County. So yeah, I don't think HUD homes are gonna really move the needle too much. But another funny part of that is even the ones that are available are pretty overpriced in my opinion. If it gets to me as an investor, that means that no retail buyer wanted to pay for it. And on the surface, that seems really dumb because if the point is to have affordable housing and HUD is the actual government selling a home and they wanna overprice it, how does that even make sense? It's funny, I remember back in 2010 when I became a realtor, there were way more HUD homes available. In fact, there were so many that they were giving realtors a 5% commission to sell them. It definitely motivated me to go and try and sell them because it was a bigger commission than everything else. But nonetheless, the only change they're talking about is allowing the owner-occupied, the nonprofits, and the government employees to have 30 days instead of the 10 to 20. I don't believe that's gonna change anything if you don't have any inventory, and when you do have inventory, it's overpriced and it's gonna get to the investor anyway. The whole system is flawed. Now there is one piece they suggest that makes sense. They say they're gonna listen to local leaders. Now I'm not sure if I qualify as a local leader, but I'm gonna give my 2 cents. The reason we're in this position is because we've artificially constrained the supply. We didn't allow foreclosures to naturally happen, and we didn't get the supply that those foreclosures would have given us. We lowered interest rates to the lowest levels we've ever seen. And when you just look at all that on the surface, the result was inevitable. And there are many things that I would do to make the market more balanced and to increase supply, but one of the big ones I see are permits. They take way too long, they're way too costly, and the whole system is archaic. So I believe if you can make that process easier and less costly, it's gonna lead to a lot more new development and new supply. It'll also make renovating homes easier as well. And I have a lot of other great ideas as well, but it's too long for this video. So if you wanna see those, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.